First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Hashem Yahushai Ba'Hashem Rokakwadash. Yahweh is to this world ignorantly calls God. Yahushai is to this world ignorantly calls Jesus. Bahashem means in the name, Rakah means spirit, and Qudash means holy. And that's on the Paleo Hebrew. Also to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. In today's video, I wanted to go into how there's no such thing as black and white, only lineages. Okay, and the reason why I'm making this video is because we have a social construct today that is called black people, white people, yellow people, brown people. It's always a color and then people. When in actuality, that's not how the Lord defines nations or people in general. Right? When the Lord, looks down upon the world, He doesn't look at a person as a black person or a white person. He's looking at the spirit, and He's looking at, oh, he's an Israelite, he's an Edomite, he's an Ishmaelite, Moabite, Ammonite, Tishbite. Whatever bites you want to be. That's ultimately how you identify a person. But today, by the way of Esau Edom, the so-called white man, the true identifying marker of humanity has been erased. And what we have is just the outside complexion. When the outside complexion is just a hint, it's not the end all be all. For example, majority of so-called Negroes are are Jews, right? Are Israelites, are from the tribe of Judah. But that doesn't mean that every single dark-skinned man is an Israelite, because another example before I go into that point. Majority of so-called white people are Edomites, but it doesn't mean that every single so-called white person is an Edomite, because it's not based on your skin complexion. Skin complexion is a hint, right? Majority, it's on point. But what really defines it is who your forefather is. Because here's a perfect example. You could have a Israelite, right? A Judite, a dark-skinned man, and if he has a child with, a white, so-called white, pale-looking woman, the child is gonna come out looking fair skinned, right? But what about if that child, which he's an Israelite because his father is an Israelite, what if that child now gets, his wife and she's also, pale skinned? The kid's gonna come out even looking even more pale. So somebody could look at, that last son and be like, hold up, this guy's an Edomite because he looks white. But they would be completely wrong, because the fathers, right, the lineage of the father goes back to an Israelite. And that's the only thing that matters. There's no such thing as mixing, I'm mixed race, my DNA is mixed. No, there's only what your forefather is. Let's read this in Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. It says, "And they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, according to the number of the names, from 20 years old and upward by their polls." Right, so let's see what that word pedigrees means. Yalad. Click the wrong one. Pedigrees. Yalad. To bring forth, day of birth, birthday, to declare one's pedigree. And when you go into that word pedigree, pedigree can refer to a diagram mapping out a family's genetic history to trace inherited traits and diseases, like a line of descent or ancestry. And I remember this used to say something else. They changed it if I remember correctly. It used to just say lineage when you went into a pedigree. I have to go back to one of my old videos to fact check that, but pedigree essentially means your lineage. Okay, and Your lineage is delineated by the house of your father. Okay, it's that simple. So let me put that in. Right, the record of descent of an animal, the recorded ancestry, your genealogy, your descent, your lineage, your line is determined by the house of your father. So let's now go into where did we have the beginning of these terms of white and black. Well, it all goes back to Bacon's rebellion in 1676. So I'm not gonna read through all this. I'm just gonna hit the points. But I did put it in ChatGPT summarize. So it says early Virginia 1600s. Some Africans like Anthony Johnson and Elizabeth Key could gain freedom, own land, and use the courts. Nathaniel Bacon led a militia of poor whites, indentured servants, and enslaved blacks against the colonial elite, even burning Jamestown. This multiracial alliance alarmed wealthy planters. To prevent future uprisings, Virginia's leaders reduced reliance on indentured servants and expanded African slavery. They created laws making slavery hereditary for Africans while granting poor whites more rights. Right, and that whole reason why, it says it, the term white began being used more to describe Europeans, separating them from black Africans. Poor whites increasingly identified with wealthy whites rather than with black laborers. Right? It was a point to separate the the people, right? And ultimately it was Esau Edom going back to his clan because people talk about, oh, you're racist, but hey, the Most High Yahweh is racist because He has chosen one nation over every single over all other ones. I got choked up there, but the Most High is racist because He has chosen one nation over all others. That is racism. And when you go into racism ultimately everybody is racist because everybody has a tribe, right? Imagine back then, it was literally this: oh, you're a Moabite. I don't like you because you're a Moabite. I'm going to war with you. I'm going to war with you because you're a Moabite, right? I'm gonna defend my people because I'm an Israelite. That's literally what racism is. Is that right there? So when you had these poor whites coming back to hanging out with the wealthy whites, that was just Esau coming back to his own people. But it says slavery became a permanent race-based system. Whites gained status and unity through racial identity, while black people were denied all rights, treated as property, and subjected to brutal exploitation and violence. Right, and Esau Edom is gonna have to pay for that. Right, that's the scripture in I think Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 10. For thy violence, I'll start at, yeah, for thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Right? So Esau, Edom talk about the so-called white man for what they did to their brother, the Israelites, so-called Latinos, Negroes, and Native Americans as a collective. For what they did unto us, shame is going to cover them. Right? You see that today. If you bring up what they did, what their forefathers did, what they did because they were their forefathers in the reincarnation. Whenever you bring that up, you see the shame on their faces because they know that it was wicked. But because of that, a shame shall cover them, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Right? In the kingdom, after 1,000 years of slavery, these nations, right, or Esau, Edom, the Edomites are going to be cut off forever. Every single one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Right? Not one be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh hath spoken it. Right? This is the Lord speaking it, not me. So, let's keep reading. It says the legal and social division between black and white laid the foundation for centuries of racial inequality and justified slavery's brutality. Right? And we see the effects today. How, the black, white, when you think about a black person or you think about something black, everything that you put black before has a negative connotation. Right? That's what black does is you think about black, the black duck, black swan, ugly, filthy, ignorant, but white is the light. It is wise, is smart, is clean, right? That's what They're telling you when they say a black person, they're saying that you're a dirty person, subconsciously. So let's go to this website here and read a little bit. It says historian Ira Berlin explains soon after Bacon's rebellion, they increasingly distinguish between people of African descent and people of European descent. They enact laws which say that people of African descent are hereditary slaves, and they increasingly give some power to independent white farmers and landholders. Now, I'm going to jump down. It says, according to the Oxford English Dictionary, the first appearance in print of the adjective white in reference to a white man, a person of a race distinguished by a light complexion, was in 1671. Colonial charters and other official documents written in the 1600s and early 1700s rarely referred to European colonists as white. Right, that was the beginning of it. And this, yep. So it says, as the status of people of African descent in the British colonies was challenged and attacked, and as white indentured servants were given new rights and status, the word white continues to be more widely used in public documents and private papers to describe the European colonists. People of European descent were considered whites, and those of African descent were labeled black. Historian Robin D.G. Kelly explains. Many of the European descended poor whites began to identify themselves, if not directly, with the rich whites, certainly with being white. And here you get the emergence of this idea of a white race as a way to distinguish themselves from those dark-skinned people who they associate with perpetual slavery. And as we keep going, hey, American slavery was often brutal, barbaric, and violent. In addition to the hardship of forced labor, enslaved people were maimed or killed by slave owners as punishment for working too slow, visiting a spouse living on another plantation, or even learning to read. Enslaved people were also sexually exploited. And Esau Edom thinks he's gonna get away with this shit. You know, Esau Edom thinks that all the wickedness he does, that he's gonna get away with it. Let's read that in Jeremiah chapter 49 verse 12. It says, talking about Esau, right? Jeremiah 49 and 10, but I have made Esau bare, I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren, and his neighbors, and he is not. Right? Esau Edom is being exposed today, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. It says, leave thy fatherless children, I will preserve them alive, and let thy widows trust in me. For thus saith Yahweh, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have assuredly drunken. And art thou he that shall go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. And that's the point. So let's break it down. When it talks about they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup, okay, the cup is talking about slavery, okay, captivity. And the they is talking about the Israelites, right? The Israelites were made to be a nation of judges, kings, rulers, priests, right? We were not meant to be at the bottom. Okay, it says in Deuteronomy that we are above all other nations. Okay, we are a holy people. So we were supposed to drink of that cup of slavery, but we surely drunk it. Right? We can read it right here, straight off the facts. Hard slavery, brutal, barbaric. So we definitely drank that cup. Let's see what that word assuredly means. To drink, of drinking cup of God's wrath of slaughter of wicked deeds, to feast. Okay. So we have assuredly drunken. It says, and art thou he that shall go altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. Right, so you think you Edomites think that you gonna go unpunished for all the atrocities that you have done? Hey, thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. And that's soon what is about to take place is Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 18. Verse 17, but upon Mount Zion shall be deliverance, and there shall be holiness, and the house of Jacob shall possess their possessions. Right, talking about the great salvation. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble. And they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for Yahweh hath spoken it. Right, and that's a straight out of the scriptures. The Israelites are going to destroy you Edomites, because the Lord hath spoken it, and for the wickedness that you have done. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob, shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Plain as day. So, this was the beginning of the whole thing of white and black, and that's a social construct, right? Every single people on earth has a lineage, and ultimately y'all goes back to Genesis 10 and 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and unto them were sons born after the flood. And then it goes on. But every single person today goes back to a Shem, Ham, or Japheth. Okay? It's that simple. And proof that anciently, that the Bible is real, that, we used to call each other these names. Here's the Moabite stone. So, this is a stone they found in Dibon, Jordan, the habitation of the Moabites, which today would be the so-called Chinese. It says, and we believe that through faith and particular proofs, history. But it says the Moabite stone or Mesha stele is a 9th century BCE black basalt monument inscribed with the Moabite victory account of King Mesha of Moab's rebellion against Israel. Found in Dibon, Jordan in 1868, its inscription a significant example of early Semitic writing, and it's not Semitic. That's something that these small hats made up, right? Sem, anti-Sem. It's Shem, right? Right here we read Shem, not Sem. So, anti-early Shemitic script confirms historical events mentioned in the Bible, including the oppression of Moab by King Omri and the presence of the God of Israel, Yahweh. The stone, shattered and later pieced back together from fragments with the help of a paper squeeze, is housed in the Louvre Museum in Paris. Right, and the writing on this stone lines up to exactly what is written in the Bible. I made a video about it a couple months back, maybe a year back, and I went into it in detail and literally lines up perfectly. So, this right here is proof that, hey, the Bible is real, and that before so-called white, black, Chinese, Arab, they were calling themselves Moabites, Israelites, Ishmaelites, Edomites, and that is the true delineator. That is the true lineage into how you mark somebody, right? So, hopefully this is edifying. And with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rokakodash, and double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom to you, like Shalom.